On February 10, 2025, President Donald Trump announced the imposition of a 25% tariff on all imported steel and aluminum products coming into the United States. This decision, made public while Trump was traveling on Air Force One to the Super Bowl in New Orleans, represents a significant escalation in his administration's trade policy and is expected to have profound implications for U.S. trade relations, particularly with major partners like Canada and Mexico. Announcement and market reaction. During the flight, Trump stated unequivocally, any steel coming into the United States is going to have a 25% tariff, which also applies to aluminum. The immediate market reaction was notable. Shares of U.S. steel companies soared in pre-market trading, indicating a positive reception from domestic producers. Companies like Cleveland-Cliffs and U.S. Steel saw significant increases in their stock values, reflecting investor optimism about the potential benefits of the tariffs for the domestic steel industry. Reciprocal tariffs. In addition to the steel and aluminum tariffs, Trump hinted at the introduction of reciprocal tariffs on countries that impose tariffs on U.S. goods. He suggested that these reciprocal measures could be announced shortly after the steel and aluminum tariffs took effect. Trump's approach to tariffs has been consistent with his administration's broader trade strategy, which aims to protect U.S. jobs and industries by imposing trade barriers against foreign goods. Global reactions. The announcement sparked immediate concern from various global trading partners. The European Union expressed alarm over the tariffs, noting that it had not received formal notification but was prepared to respond to protect its own businesses and consumers. French officials indicated they would replicate any tariffs imposed by the U.S., while Germany warned of the negative consequences of a tariff conflict, stating, "In the long term, a tariff conflict only has losers." South Korea, another significant exporter of steel to the U.S., convened an emergency meeting to assess the potential impact of the new tariffs on its economy. With approximately $4.8 billion worth of steel exported to the U.S. in the previous year, the South Korean government is keenly aware of the economic implications and is evaluating its response to these trade barriers. Historical context. This latest tariff announcement follows a pattern established during Trump's first term, where he imposed similar tariffs on steel and aluminum, particularly targeting Canada, Mexico, and the European Union. While some of these tariffs were lifted after negotiations, the trade tensions have persisted. The steel and aluminum industries have long been a focal point for Trump's trade policies, with the administration viewing tariffs as a tool to bolster domestic production and reduce reliance on foreign imports. Political implications. The political ramifications of Trump's decision are already being felt, particularly in Canada. Canadian officials, including Ontario's Premier Doug Ford, criticized the tariffs, arguing that they could destabilize the economy and lead to job losses. The interdependence between U.S. and Canadian steel industries is substantial, and many jobs in the U.S. are linked to steel and aluminum inputs from Canada. Additionally, Trump's use of tariffs has been framed as a means to address not only trade imbalances but also broader issues such as illegal immigration and drug smuggling. By linking economic policy to immigration and security concerns, Trump aims to present a united front that resonates with his base. Conclusion. In summary, Trump's announcement of a 25% tariff on imported steel and aluminum marks a significant shift in U.S. trade policy and is expected to trigger a series of retaliatory measures from global trading partners. The immediate reaction from financial markets indicates optimism among domestic producers, yet the long-term implications for international relations and economic stability remain uncertain. As countries respond to these tariffs, the potential for escalating trade conflicts looms large, highlighting the delicate balance between protecting domestic industries and maintaining healthy international trade relationships. The announcement by President Donald Trump on February 10, 2025. Regarding the imposition of a 25% tariff on all imported steel and aluminum products is laden with complexities and implications that challenge commonly held beliefs about tariffs and their effects on economies. Here are some counterintuitive insights derived from the content surrounding this announcement. 1. Market reactions to tariffs. Contrary to the expected negative effects of tariffs on the broader economy, the immediate market reaction saw shares of U.S. steel companies surge. This suggests that while tariffs are typically viewed as harmful to consumers due to increased prices, they can also lead to a short-term positive impact on domestic producers' stock prices. This dichotomy illustrates how tariffs can create winners and losers within different sectors of the economy. 2. Reciprocal tariffs as a strategy. Trump's mention of reciprocal tariffs may seem like a straightforward retaliatory measure. However, it introduces a layer of complexity to international trade relations. The idea that if one country imposes tariffs on U.S. goods, the U.S. will respond with an equal measure can lead to a tit-for-tat escalation that might seem counterproductive. This approach can provoke a cycle of retaliatory measures that ultimately harm all parties involved, including consumers in both countries. 3. Long-term economic impact versus short-term gains. While the imposition of tariffs is often framed as a method to protect domestic jobs and industries, the historical context suggests that these measures can lead to long-term economic inefficiencies. For instance, past tariffs have led to increased costs for manufacturers reliant on imported materials, which can then be passed on to consumers. This eventual inflationary pressure contradicts the initial narrative that tariffs are purely beneficial for domestic industries. 4. Dependence on global supply chains. The interconnectedness of the U.S. economy with Canada and Mexico, both major suppliers of steel and aluminum, highlights the paradox of imposing tariffs. Rather than protecting jobs, such tariffs could endanger them due to the intricate supply chains that exist. Many U.S. industries rely on imported steel and aluminum to remain competitive, and increasing costs could lead to job losses in those sectors, a point emphasized by Canadian officials regarding the interdependence of the two economies. 5. Political ramifications and public sentiment. The political narrative surrounding tariffs often positions them as a tool for patriotism and national defense. However, public sentiment, as indicated by declining consumer confidence linked to tariff announcements, suggests that many consumers recognize the potential for rising prices and economic instability. This disconnect between political rhetoric and public sentiment may not align with the intended political gains from such tariff policies. 6. Global trade dynamics. The European Union's immediate reaction to the tariffs indicates a broader geopolitical dynamic that contradicts the notion of tariffs as a unilateral tool for national benefit. The EU's commitment to reciprocate and protect its interests reveals how interconnected global trade is, and suggests that unilateral tariff actions can lead to broader trade conflicts that may ultimately hurt the imposing nation as well. 7. The rhetoric of national security. Trump's framing of tariffs as a necessity for national security, arguing that the U.S. needs to be self-sufficient in steel production for military readiness, can be seen as an oversimplification. This rationale may not consider the complexities of modern military logistics and the global nature of supply chains, where reliance on foreign steel does not necessarily compromise national security. 8. Tariffs and inflation. The anticipation of inflation resulting from tariffs, as indicated by consumer sentiment surveys, presents a counterintuitive aspect of tariff policy. While tariffs are promoted as a means to bolster domestic industries and create jobs, they may inadvertently lead to higher prices for consumers, which can stifle economic growth and consumer spending, the very drivers of a healthy economy. These points highlight the multifaceted nature of tariff policies and the often counterintuitive outcomes they can produce, challenging the simplistic binary of tariffs as either wholly beneficial or entirely detrimental. The recent announcement by President Donald Trump to impose a 25% tariff on all imported steel and aluminum products is significant for several reasons, many of which may be overlooked in casual discussions about trade. 1. Historical context and continuity of policy. One of the most important but potentially overlooked aspects of this tariff announcement is its place within a broader historical context of Trump's trade policies. This is not an isolated decision, but rather a continuation of his administration's aggressive trade stance that began during his first term. In 2018, Trump imposed similar tariffs, which were then met with retaliatory measures from countries such as China, Canada, and Mexico. While the previous tariffs were lifted for some partners after negotiations, the underlying themes of protectionism and a focus on American manufacturing have remained central to Trump's economic strategy. Understanding this context is crucial because it highlights a consistent ideological approach rather than a reactionary one. The tariffs are framed as tools to protect American jobs and industries, particularly in the face of perceived unfair trade practices by other nations. This ideological positioning is significant because it resonates with a segment of the American electorate that feels threatened by globalization and foreign competition. 2. Economic implications beyond immediate markets. The immediate market reactions, particularly the surge in shares of U.S. steel companies, are widely reported, but the broader economic implications are often glossed over. Tariffs typically result in increased costs for consumers, as domestic producers may raise prices in response to reduced competition. This effect can ripple through various sectors, especially in industries reliant on steel and aluminum, such as automotive and construction. Moreover, the imposition of tariffs can lead to inflationary pressures. The expectation of rising prices among consumers, as indicated by a recent consumer sentiment survey, suggests that the tariffs could dampen economic growth in the long run. This aspect is particularly significant as it contradicts the administration's narrative that tariffs will bolster the economy. It raises fundamental questions about the balance between protecting domestic industries and ensuring affordable prices for consumers. 3. Geopolitical repercussions. While the immediate focus is on economic impacts, the geopolitical ramifications of Trump's tariff announcement are profound and often overlooked. The reaction from key trading partners, especially Canada and Mexico, is critical. Both countries are major suppliers of steel and aluminum to the U.S., and their economies are closely intertwined with that of the U.S. The potential for retaliatory tariffs could escalate tensions and lead to a trade war, which would not only affect these countries but also have global ramifications. The European Union's response, indicating a willingness to replicate tariffs, further emphasizes the potential for a cascade of retaliatory measures. This could destabilize international trade relationships that have been carefully negotiated over decades. Such geopolitical tensions can lead to reduced cooperation on other critical issues such as climate change, security, and public health. 4. Political ramifications and domestic response. The domestic political implications of this tariff are significant, yet they may not be fully appreciated. While Trump frames the tariffs as a means to protect American jobs, the reality is that many sectors could suffer. For instance, industries dependent on imported steel and aluminum may face job losses due to rising costs and reduced competitiveness. Moreover, political figures in Canada such as Premier Doug Ford have already expressed strong opposition to the tariffs, suggesting they could destabilize the economy and threaten jobs on both sides of the border. The interdependence of the U.S. and Canadian economies means that tariffs could have a boomerang effect, ultimately harming American workers as well. 5. Long-term economic strategy versus short-term gains. The imposition of tariffs can provide short-term benefits for domestic steel producers, as evidenced by the stock price increases following Trump's announcement. However, the long-term strategy behind such tariffs is questionable. Continuous reliance on tariffs may hinder innovation and competitiveness within American industries. Instead of investing in new technologies or improving efficiencies, companies might become complacent, relying on tariff protections to sustain their market positions. This aspect raises an essential question about the sustainability of such economic policies. Will the U.S. be able to maintain its competitive edge in global markets if it continually resorts to protectionist measures? The potential for a tariff trap where industries become overly reliant on government protections rather than striving for efficiency and innovation is a significant concern that warrants attention. 6. Emerging global trade dynamics. Finally, the announcement highlights shifting dynamics in global trade. As countries respond to U.S. tariffs, new alliances and trade agreements may emerge. For example, countries affected by U.S. tariffs may seek to strengthen ties with one another or with other economic blocs to mitigate the impact of American trade policies. This could lead to a more fragmented global trade environment where countries gravitate towards regional agreements rather than multilateral ones. In summary, while the immediate effects of Trump's tariff announcement are clear in terms of market responses and international tensions, the broader implications for historical context, economic sustainability, geopolitical relationships, and domestic political dynamics are significant areas that warrant deeper analysis. Understanding these factors is crucial for grasping the full impact of such trade policies on both the U.S. and the global economy. 1. Immediate economic impact and market reactions. The announcement of a 25% tariff on all imported steel and aluminum products had an immediate and notable impact on the U.S. stock market, particularly in the steel sector. Shares of major U.S. steel companies surged, indicating a positive sentiment among domestic producers regarding the tariff's potential to protect local jobs and market share. This reaction underscores the broader economic implications of tariffs, where domestic industries may benefit in the short term. But the longer-term effects on consumers and other sectors remain uncertain. Analysis of these dynamics presents an opportunity to explore the balance between protecting U.S. industry and the potential for increased costs for consumers in downstream industries reliant on steel and aluminum. 2. Retaliatory trade measures and global reactions. The announcement triggered immediate concerns among U.S. trading partners, particularly Canada, Mexico, and the European Union, which warned of potential retaliatory measures. Canada's officials expressed worries about the destabilizing effects on their economy, particularly given the interdependence of the U.S. and Canadian steel industries. The EU also indicated a readiness to respond to protect its interests. This situation provides a fertile ground for discussing the complexities of international trade relationships and the potential for escalating trade wars. An analysis of historical precedents and the potential consequences of tit-for-tat tariff policies can illuminate the risks involved in such aggressive trade strategies. 3. Political implications and domestic policy framework. Trump's tariff announcement aligns with his administration's broader economic strategy of using tariffs as tools for domestic job protection and trade balance. The political ramifications of this decision are significant, particularly considering the upcoming electoral context and the potential backlash from consumers facing higher prices. An in-depth discussion could focus on how these tariffs fit into the larger narrative of Trump's economic policies, the role of public sentiment regarding trade, and how these factors may influence both domestic and international political landscapes. 4. Historical context and evolution of U.S. trade policy. This tariff announcement is part of a broader historical pattern in U.S. trade policy, particularly under Trump, who has previously employed tariffs as a strategy to address trade imbalances and protect American industries. Understanding the context of these tariffs, including previous actions taken during Trump's first term and the outcomes of those policies, is crucial for analyzing the current situation. This point invites a discussion on the evolution of U.S. trade policy over the decades, the motivations behind protectionist measures, and the implications for future trade relations both domestically and internationally. These points provide a comprehensive framework for an in-depth analysis and discussion of the implications surrounding the recent tariff announcement, touching on immediate economic effects, international relations, political dynamics, and historical context. 1. Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act 1930. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act was a significant piece of legislation passed by the United States Congress that raised tariffs on over 20,000 imported goods. The act aimed to protect American industries from foreign competition in the wake of the Great Depression. However, it led to retaliatory tariffs from other countries, significantly reducing international trade and worsening the economic downturn. The act is often cited as a contributing factor to the deepening of the Great Depression due to its negative effects on global trade relations. 2. Section 232 Tariffs on Steel and Aluminum 2018. In March 2018, President Donald Trump announced tariffs of 25% on steel and 10% on aluminum imports. Citing national security concerns under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962. The administration argued that reliance on foreign steel and aluminum could jeopardize national security. This move prompted backlash from various countries and resulted in retaliatory tariffs on American goods, particularly from Canada, the European Union, and China. The tariffs were a key component of Trump's trade policy and sparked significant debate regarding their economic impact. 3. The Tariff of 1828 Tariff of Abominations. The Tariff of 1828, known as the Tariff of Abominations, was designed to protect American industry by imposing high tariffs on imported goods. The South, particularly South Carolina, heavily opposed the tariff, arguing it favored northern manufacturers at the expense of southern economies reliant on imported goods. This led to the nullification crisis, where South Carolina attempted to nullify the tariff within its borders, resulting in a significant conflict between state and federal authority. The tariff highlighted deep sectional divisions in the United States and was a precursor to the tensions that would eventually lead to the Civil War. Future outlook on Trump's tariff policy and its implications. The recent announcement by President Trump to impose a 25% tariff on all imported steel and aluminum products marks a significant moment in U.S. trade policy. This decision is expected to have wide-ranging implications not only for the domestic economy but also for international relations and global markets. Here are some predictions regarding the future impact of these tariffs and the broader trade landscape. 1. Domestic economic impact. The immediate reaction from U.S. steel companies has been positive, with stocks rising sharply after the announcement. However, the long-term effects on the U.S. economy may be mixed. Job creation versus job loss. While the tariffs are designed to protect domestic steel and aluminum jobs, the increased costs for manufacturers relying on these materials could lead to job losses in sectors such as automotive and construction. Companies may pass on the costs to consumers, resulting in higher prices for goods that incorporate steel and aluminum. Inflationary pressures. The tariffs are likely to contribute to inflation. As prices for raw materials rise, manufacturers may increase the prices of finished goods, leading to an overall increase in consumer prices. This inflation could dampen consumer spending and affect economic growth. Supply chain disruptions. The tariffs may further strain supply chains, which have already been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Industries dependent on imported steel and aluminum could face production delays and increased costs, leading to a ripple effect throughout the economy. 2. International trade relations. Trump's tariffs are set to escalate tensions with key trading partners, particularly Canada, Mexico, and the European Union. The following outcomes are likely. Retaliatory measures. Countries affected by the tariffs are expected to respond with their own tariffs on U.S. goods. The European Union and Canada have already indicated that they may replicate the tariffs affecting U.S. exports. This tit-for-tat scenario could lead to a broader trade conflict, negatively impacting global trade. Strained alliances. The imposition of tariffs could strain diplomatic relations, particularly with allies. Countries like Canada, which are critical partners in various trade agreements, may reassess their diplomatic ties with the U.S., potentially leading to long-term geopolitical shifts. Global trade dynamics. The tariffs could alter global trade dynamics, pushing countries to seek new trade agreements and partnerships. Nations may look to diversify their trade relationships, reducing reliance on the U.S. market, which could weaken U.S. influence in international trade. 3. Market reactions and economic forecasts. The financial markets reacted positively to the announcement in the short term, but the medium to long-term outlook is uncertain. Volatility in stock markets. Market volatility is expected as investors react to ongoing developments in U.S. trade policy. Industries adversely affected by the tariffs may see declines in stock prices, while domestic steel manufacturers could experience fluctuations based on perceived profitability. Investment shifts: companies may reconsider their investment strategies in light of the tariffs. Domestic manufacturers could increase investments in U.S. production capabilities, while foreign companies might seek to minimize exposure to U.S. markets by relocating or diversifying their operations. 4. Political implications. Trump's tariffs are not just an economic issue, they have significant political implications. Support and opposition. While the tariffs may boost support among certain voter bases focused on domestic job protection, they could alienate other groups, particularly those who rely on affordable imports. This division could impact upcoming elections and political campaigns. Policy continuity. The tariffs may signal a continuation of Trump's America First trade policy, which prioritizes protectionism over free trade. This approach could shape the administration's broader economic strategy and influence future policy decisions. 5. Long-term economic strategies. In the longer term, the U.S. may need to reassess its trade policies. Need for comprehensive trade strategy. The unilateral imposition of tariffs may not be a sustainable long-term strategy. The U.S. might benefit from developing a comprehensive trade policy that balances protectionism with the need for international cooperation and trade agreements. Focus on innovation and competitiveness. To effectively compete in a global market, the U.S. may need to invest in innovation and technology to enhance the competitiveness of its manufacturing sector. Policies that foster research and development could ultimately yield better results than tariffs alone. Conclusion. The imposition of a 25% tariff on imported steel and aluminum is a pivotal moment in U.S. trade policy with far-reaching implications. While there are potential benefits for domestic manufacturers, the risks of retaliatory measures, inflation, and market volatility cannot be overlooked. The future will depend on how both domestic and international actors respond to this policy, as well as the broader economic strategies that emerge in its wake.